Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm actually really hoping that this rainy period is done. Like, I know just kind of have to get through this week and, dare I say, smooth sailing for spring. Like, bring on the warm weather, the sunshine, all that good stuff, all the stuff we live for. Like, that's why we live in this neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I wore shorts the other day, and then all of a
Oh,
sudden it
no one
was
needs
like
that.
then the next day it was like 36 degrees outside and snowing when I went to go to work. I'm like, what is happening? What
Yeah,
what
that's
exactly is happening? Welcome in everybody. We're doing a live show.
Hey, wait,
Um,
where's our guy?
with his This is
Is
typical.
he down there? There's
Oh,
only two of us.
Brendan. We do not have
Oh,
Brendan today. Brendan is taking care of a bunch of business because he decided to. We're just going to put his business out there. He
yeah,
decided to
let's do it.
rear end somebody in
Shouldn't
his
do that.
girlfriend's car.
Frowned upon. Do you like that I was doing the whole like Brady Bunch thing, like looking around?
Yeah, yeah.
Brendan wouldn't understand who the Brady Bunch is. He'd probably think that's Tom Brady, but no, it was a TV show, Brendan. In case you're watching.
He also would not know if we did like Hollywood Squares, right? So,
Oh, good
like
one.
you
Yeah.
look up, you look over.
Is there still a version of that on the air? Because I saw like Michael Strahan, I think, is going to host the new pyramid, like the 10,000. It's probably more than that now. It was $100,000 pyramid, something like that.
Yeah. You know what? I think they are bringing out Hollywood Squares again. I don't know who's going to be hosting it though.
What do you think the
It
biggest name that they could get, and why would it be Kevin Hart? Like, because he does everything.
Well, they have Seacrest doing Wheel of Fortune now.
Oh,
And to be
really? I
honest,
didn't know that.
it's not good. Seacrest took the job and instantly was like, "Why am I here?" Like Pat
Mm,
Sajak had phoned it in for like 5 years, and it
yeah.
got like surly and offensive. And if you really watch, you're like, "Oh, Pat, I don't think you're allowed to say that on TV." But now they've switched to Seacrest, and it just feels kind of odd and like it's run its course. It's like sad.
Speaking of feeling odd, I don't like my little setup here. All of a sudden for a minute. I'm trying to fix. Anyway, they were
All
fine.
right.
I was looking at my
Um,
camera view for the audio listener.
Well, welcome in, everybody. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. Make sure to jump on board with Underdog. Download the app right now. Check it out. It's super fun. It totally helps, like, like, helps you add something to your viewing pleasure, especially with the Kings playing some of the worst basketball of the season
Mm.
and in a 4-game losing streak and looking like they're heading the wrong direction at the exact wrong time. But the good thing about Underdog is it doesn't worry about all that stuff, and you can choose things like more than points and assists for Malik Monk, or less than points and assists for Zack LaVine, who's decided he's not going to shoot the basketball anymore. I think it's a really cool way to again just enhance your viewing pleasure of the Sacramento Kings, especially during a very awkward time in the franchise that we're watching play out right now. So, if you are inclined and you're interested in joining the Underdog world, go again, download the app, click on the little button. It says add a promo code, and the promo code that we have here is Kings Beat, all one word. KINGSBEAT, and that will get you a free play and up to $1,000 in credits. So, yeah, check it out. Cool. Um,
Oh, how many categories do you usually pick when you do yours? Because I feel like this version of the
yeah,
you're better than the last version.
yeah.
Like I
I
feel like you're making money.
Well, I really like Underdog because you can adjust all kinds of things. Like again, if you're looking at a player's points and they're like 19.5 for the night, and you're like, I think they're going to score way more than that. You can adjust and increase your payout odds, and to me, that's really cool. I also found that Kyle and I we have this thing where, like we can be dark and pretty pessimistic, but in
No,
reality,
yeah,
we're both pretty optimistic people. So we always, when we're choosing our underdog lineups, we always go higher for some reason. And so that's because we're searching for things that we think are low and someone will go higher than. So we started doing this thing on the insiders where Kyle will bring in like 5 different things that he's going to look at for that night. And then we have an extra set of eyes. So he'll say, okay, points, rebounds, assists for Bam Adebayo. And I'm like, oh, I think that's going to be way lower. He's like, lower than 30 something? And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be lower because they're playing the Clippers and, they're going up against what's Zubats, who's turned into a machine out of nowhere. And I think he's going to have problems staying on the court. So we make these lineups now. And since we started like having 2 of us look at the lineups, we're actually doing much better. So
Hmm.
maybe that's what you guys need to do. Maybe you just need to have your friends jump on
I
board and help you and give them
I
the promo code KingSpeed.
I've encouraged you not to pick the Kings when you're doing this. I think you'll do better.
Oh, at
if you
this point,
pick away from
yeah,
the Kings games, because yeah.
yeah. Okay, so just to get this out of the way, you must be 18 or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778 Hope NY or text Hope NY to 467
Got that?
369. There we go. So check it out.
That's the
Um,
type of read where you have to read that part like a million miles an hour.
well, I know, I know. Kyle's gotten really good at it. He's super fast at reading the disclaimer. Let's get into this, Sean. Of course, if you guys are watching here, we'd love it if you hit the thumbs up for us. That's always
Please.
cool. Uh,
Please. Nicely.
and
Ask nicely.
subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. That would be awesome. Jump on board with the Kingspeed. Go to thekingspeed.com, become a premium subscriber, all that stuff, so you get everything sent right to your inbox. Sean, the Kings have lost 4 in a row for the first time since Doug Christie took over the team in late December. And to be honest with you, they don't even look like 4-0 doesn't capture how bad the team is playing. And I'm not sure. Like again, they just got Malik Monk back. They just got Domantas Sabonis back, but that doesn't change the fact that this team looks like a collection of players and not a team. And they're choosing the exact wrong time in their schedule to kind of fall apart. I'm just wondering, what's your like initial concern level? You went to practice today. You talked to Domas. I'm sure you talked to Doug. You might have talked to one other player, but what's your level of concern right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up practice because I think everyone should listen to what Doug and Malik Monk in particular had to say. Domas for sure as well. I mean, obviously talking a little bit about his individual circumstance coming back from the hamstring, getting kind of ragdolled by Ryan Dunn in that loss to Phoenix that really felt unnecessary. Um,
Yeah, that was weird.
he's used to physicality. I mean, even that play from Mason Plumlee, Doug even mentioned how he didn't think anybody really saw it from his team. Because like no one was kind of looking at it. They might be looking on TV. It might look like they're looking in that direction, but he didn't think maybe some of his teammates saw it. But yeah, just a kind of a weird treatment. But the point I was getting to is I really enjoyed the comments and the conversation with Malik Monk and Doug Christie today, and Domas as well, just because, especially with Malik, when it comes to him in terms of figuring out the new point guard role. Um, they put him in a position, and Doug actually said this within the conversation, where it's like, hey, you were a 6 man of the year candidate. You guys were, oh, hey, Lorraine.
Hey,
Lorraine's
Lorraine.
awesome.
We're glad
What a
we're glad you're still here, Lorraine, too. We're
Yeah.
very excited to see you jump in the chat.
For the audio listener, we just got we saw Lorraine Fox was in here and saying she
Yeah.
likes listening to. Is that what it was like listening to us?
Yeah.
She might be the only one. She's too nice. But to the point of just the first 5 minutes of him trying to figure out the game, and it's almost like he has to think about it because he can't play that same role in the first 5 minutes and the people he's playing with until guys like Keon Ellis and They even mentioned Jake LaRavia get into the game, and then he can kind of switch and be that guy who was the Malik Monk we all know and love, and looking to be that scoring type of player. And I thought that was interesting because you know me, James, and I use this argument so often when it makes it sound like I'm an apologist for DeMar DeRozan, and it's I don't want players to be something that they're not. And certainly you can pick up characteristics you can add to your game, much like Keegan Murray has, is becoming a defensive player. But my point being is you shouldn't take somebody who's known for playing one way and expect them to play something completely different for another team. Like their characteristics are what they are. That the old saying that zebra isn't changing their stripes, that is who they are. And then all of a sudden when you get into that position, now you have to start to think about it, and that's the worst thing you want them to do. And I use kind of, Kings fans might remember Willie Cauley-Stein. I always use him as an example because what you don't want, Willie could go out there and make just the instinctual play, incredibly fluid, and it would be incredible. You'd go, oh my God, what was that? But then when you see him have to kind of noodle it through and think about it, it was a train wreck debacle. Like that's where things fell apart, particularly on the offensive end. And that I don't know if that's necessarily what's happening with Malik's case, but he is having to adapt to a different role. So that on top of a 4-game losing skid, which in my mind, I don't know. I don't know, James, you and some of these people in the chat might be a little bit different. I kind of look at the 4-game skid, albeit a 4-game skid, and it is 4 in a row. But I'm more concerned about the 2 in the row, the Warriors and the Phoenix game. Because the Clipper game is what it is. I think that was such a gut punch. It was one of those wins where you're just going to look back at the end of the season and just go, why? What could have been different? Then you get into obviously the Knicks, and that's just a whole different. That's a tough one to have to rebound and go to, the team who's playing so well. But the Warriors and the Phoenix Suns just kind of more in the wheelhouse of where the Kings are and what they mean to the Western Conference. And I think certainly you were expecting their best effort, and they just didn't have it. And the one thing that just continues to be ever present in so many of these games is just a big deficit, a big hole that the Kings have to dig themselves out of. And it comes at various parts, but particularly just becomes in the first half where I think we're noticing it a lot more. And I think it is troublesome. It's worrisome. It's all those things. But now you're staring at a 7-game homestand with steep opposition. And Doug talked about that and how much they look forward to that steep opposition because it just has more of a weight to it. It means more. It's one thing to beat up on the teams that are the lesser echelon teams in the league, but this is what you should be getting up for. This is why you're hoping to make a postseason run, and these are the teams that you'll face in the postseason. So, could be an interesting couple of weeks ahead for this team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting. And I'm going to start with the Malik thing. This has always been the problem. There's more shots as the first player coming off the bench and the leader of the second unit than there is with a starting 5 that has 5 offensive players. And that's just like the reality. And, I know like very much so Malik pushed to get into the starting lineup. He pushed a lot. And the fact that he's now in the starting lineup and being concerned about the number of shots that he's getting and all that stuff, to be honest, that's basketball. That's what this was always going to look like. There's only so many shots. There's only so many, one person can hold the ball at a time. And if you didn't think that was going to be the problem, if you thought you were just going to move it into the starting lineup and then just get more shots, then you don't know the game. And so, like, I know that, to be honest with you, like, there isn't a lot of, like, poor Malik for me at all. Like, I think Malik is a very talented player. I think he's always been better suited off the bench because he brings energy and he can change the tempo of a game. I also don't think he's a natural point guard, although I think he's playing much better as a point guard, this season. I think he's good in the 2-man game, but that's about it. In order to be an elite point guard, you have to be better than just at the 2-man game where you either get to score or Domas gets to score. You've got to be able to set up guys in the corners. You got to be able to set up guys, skip passes and everything else. And you have to get everybody involved. And so I like, honestly, I don't know how the Kings move forward, like what they're going to look like next season. But at the same time, once they hit the turbo button and they said Malik Monk is now a starter, Now you have to deal with all of these issues that come with that. You don't have a Malik Monk off the bench now. And so that's a problem. So your bench unit spends the next 2.5 months getting their ass kicked, right? And that's because you had to take your primary scorer off the bench and put him in the starting lineup. So now we get to a point where you make a trade and you have three dudes in the starting lineup that you can't hide. You can hide one of them sometimes. Sometimes you can hide two of them, but you can't hide all three of them. And so all of a sudden the Kings aren't a very good defensive team. And to be honest with you, Sean, they aren't a very good offensive team either. They had a
Right.
couple of games there where they're really good offensively against some of the dregs of the NBA, some of the worst teams in the league. But now that they're playing actual competition, their offensive rating over the last 4 games during the losing streak is like 107, and their defensive rating is like a 128, and their net rating is a negative 20.5 or something. Like they're getting their ass kicked. It's not just losing these 4 games, but it's losing handily and looking like a team that doesn't know where they're going. And that's a concern. And so, I get Malik is trying to figure out if he should be a pass first guy or not. But like he told us after the first game, his first game back, that the one thing that he noticed when he looked at the court was that they needed him to distribute more and to get other people involved. And since that game, I believe he's led the Kings in field goal attempts in 3 of the next 4 games, or in all 3 since he's been back. And so there has to be like a recognition of what you're saying and then what you're actually doing on the court. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's this isn't the team they came into the season with. So I think anyone who hears that, like, I they're trying to make it work. I mean, Doug uses a very apropos analogy of trying to fix the plane while it's in the air, and it's what they are. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to survive, man. They're just trying to get by and be able to
Yep.
make some noise and have a level of evaluation while all the while competing. And so this is to be expected. Look, I'm not someone who's going to say that Malik should come off the bench or start or any of that. And furthermore, I wouldn't sit there and say like he should be chided for wanting to start. Every player wants to start. Like even when they tell you that, oh, it doesn't matter, every player wants to start. But the reality is, I do agree they have won games with Malik as a starter. They haven't really done that with him as a starting point guard, and that's the part where they have to figure out. And he's playing plug and play. And with respect to what you're saying, James, even if you put Malik on the bench, you still don't have a starting point guard. You don't have a style. You don't have a starting caliber point guard. Keon Ellis isn't the answer at point guard. Devin Carter right now is not the answer at point guard. Neither is Markelle Fultz. So however you go about trying to mix and match, you might be able to find a better mix. I do agree that however that works, but so much energy is wasted into this who should start and who should sit and all these things. Like they're all gonna play. And that to me is, I think sometimes they go a little bit too deep into their rotations. Certainly you can kind of, pick apart some of those as well. I think Doug is he kind of compared today's practice to a little bit of that first practice that he took over in LA, and just how having to make things overly simplistic because sometimes it's just needed. And certainly the way this team has played, and like you said, they're not a good offensive team. That's the one thing I thought that they would not struggle with. They absolutely are. I
Yeah.
mean, they look like they're running in mud half the time. And for a team, the worst thing to do is to have a team who's struggling for turnovers. And I think I mentioned it in one of the previous podcasts. That doesn't bother me because it shows a willingness that they're trying. They're trying to move the basketball, or at least trying to have some sort of ball rotation that's a little bit more crisp and fluid than what you're used to seeing, as opposed to dribbling shit out of the basketball and having a lot of ISO, which you do have ISO players and you have that type of characteristic on your team, and a lot of time it works. But the thing that I think hurts more than even some of those turnovers is the quick shooting of the basketball. And we saw this under Mike Brown too. I mean, a quick shooting of the basketball when maybe a little bit of a run has happened. It could be 8-2, 8-0, who knows? Maybe even smaller as something as a 6-0, and it's just a one pass to a chucked up shot where that's in my mind just as big of a turnover, if not worse. And so those are things I think they're just trying to they're trying to still navigate and try to get beyond. And it's going to be challenging, man. Like it's if you take all that aside, I think the thing that bothered me the most, at least in these last 2 games, and I do think there are a handful of things that you can sit there and be optimistic about as you know, put that 4-game skid behind you and look to move on. Like you're kind of closer to out of the play-in tournament at this point than you are to the 6th seed, and I think that should hopefully serve as a wake-up call, because the sense of urgency is more than any. We've talked about this at various points, even under the Doug Christie era, and to me, that is the most alarming. Like, how does this team struggle with just being ready to go and having the wherewithal? Someone like, and I hate to pick on Zach here, but I'm gonna. I mean, I respect what the Warriors did. They tried to take him out, but I think what he's battling with is trying to be that good teammate, as opposed to being like, no, man, go out there and take 20 shots if you need to. Like, that's the type of player they expect you to be. That's the type of player that's the type of performance where they're going to need it. You know, they're counting on you to get to the 20-30 mark and carry this team from a workload standpoint. And if he doesn't have that, they really struggle to score. Like, you should be able to pencil DeRozan, LaVine 20+ points in a game, because the guys like Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, and even Malik Monk at this point, because of his struggles, you can't count on all the time. So that to me has to be the aggressiveness. And I felt like we jinxed him, because we were talking so much about that. They go on the road and right before San Francisco, and it was all of a sudden his attempts are incredibly low, and that's just not the player he needs to be for Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next big like red flag here that we need to discuss, because I hate saying this, like, as soon as Zack LaVine starts doing, I mean, one game he shoots the ball 10 times, goes 5 of 10. And then he talked to us about that and said he's not concerned. He shot over 50% from 3, or he shot 50% from 3 and 50% from the field, and he didn't think it was a big deal. The next game, he went out and, like, by his standards, had an absolutely incredible game. He shot 5 of 6 from the field and hit all 4 of his 3-point shots. That's a highly efficient game. But when you play 33 minutes and you're the team's leading scorer, you can't take 6 shots. And I don't know what to make of that. And then we fast forward to the next game, and he does the same exact thing. Like, in all, like, I don't care what his final stats say. He ends up shooting 13 shots. 7 of those shots came in the fourth quarter, when the game was flat out over. It was flat out over.
7 of 13, James, and you're right. Yeah, the fourth quarter attempts, it's like someone lit a fire under him and said, like, it's one thing for the Warriors to do that because the way they defend. It's another thing for a shitty team like Phoenix to do it, and that's inexcusable to me.
Yeah, it's almost like he looked at the scoreboard and was like, "Ah, shoot, I've only got 6 shots. That's not going to look good. People are going to get pissed at me for that."
He played 36 minutes. You know, like you got to put up more shots than that, and that's I don't know. Look, he hasn't been a King very long, and certainly we've seen he was on a team where he had to be a chucker on the Bulls, and boy, I've never seen him play that way. You know, I've never seen him come in and just pass up on great open shots. Now, that could be because of their lack of point guard play. That could be attributed to that. Maybe not getting the best looks, trying to figure out a way to work with Domas, who literally just came back from a 6-game absence. I think and it's funny because I had drawn a comparison, like playing with Vucevic gives you a little bit of a taste of what it would be like to play with Domantas Sabonis. It's not the same, but it does give you a little bit of a taste on how to work a 2-man game, and that probably will just come with time. Again, fixing the airplane in the air, I get it, but boy, I just wouldn't have thought that would have been an issue with him in really a good sample size. It's a healthy sample size now of some of these games since coming over to Sacramento.
Yeah, and I've said this early on. I think he actually plays better when he's playing with Valanciunas. I think he does, because I think Vucevic is closer to Valanciunas than he is, than he is Sabonis. And so it's more of a conventional big. It's more of a gigantic human being setting screens and resetting screens, and that's where we've seen Zach like really take off. But there's also this whole thing about him just. It almost feels like he's okay with coasting through the game and not being impactful. And that's not going to fly, especially when next season he's making 46 million and the year after that he's making 49 million. And my biggest concern is that as soon as this starts happening and you point something out, like, every single Chicago Bulls fan goes, yeah, welcome to the Zach LaVine experience. And that's always like a uh-oh moment. So we already know, like, defensively, you're going to, he's had some moments where he's been good. He's also had moments where it's not good. And to be honest with you, I just don't know how you walk into like the final 16 games or into next season and you have three of your starting five are just negative defenders. And again, we watched the the Golden State Warriors use Steph Curry. They hid Steph Curry on Keegan Murray because Keegan's not being aggressive enough as an offensive player. And is that disrespectful? Okay, maybe it is. But at the same time, like, if the Kings were to play against a team like themselves, like, who would you go hide? And that's the problem. Like, you would try to hide Monk, you try to hide DeMar DeRozan, you try to hide Zach LaVine, and doggone it, those other teams just they don't have three players that don't play offense. So you run out of people to hide. And so for me, it just becomes like this huge issue that, if this is a team going forward, I mean, there will be nights where they win and where they look great, but this is still a very, very strangely constructed team that needs a lot more like changes and very abrupt changes this offseason.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's an evolution. You fire the coach, you trade De'Aaron Fox. I mean, this is your team's going to look different, and to
Yeah.
try to have a complete team while doing all that is very difficult to do. But this is going to be an interesting stretch. I feel like we're Debbie Downers here. I think there should be things to be fun to talk about. At least, I mean, they're
Be
33
Sean.
and 33. Well,
What
you
would
just
those
used
be?
you did just use a doggone it phrase, and I didn't think I'd hear that come out of your mouth in this podcast. I mean, you are
Being
doing
a
a
smart
podcast with
ass.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like there's the other thing too is like the 4-game trip, and I know they weren't playing the most great, the best opponents in that stretch, but uh like where's that effort that's against Denver? I know you lost that game. Where's the effort that's against Clippers? And I know you lost that game too. But if you lose those games and you have that type of effort, you're fine with that. You're absolutely fine with. You should be. You should be fine with that. Coming into games the way you've played on that road trip, even if it was against some of the lower opposition of the league, like the way they played, the way they looked like a team, and I mean that would have competed way better against the likes of Phoenix and Golden State and New York than what we've seen. So also I think you're a victim of a little bit. I mean, you do have an older team at this point. So having 3 games in 4 nights, which you're going to have here at home, all at home coming up on this week. But I think that does take a little bit more of a toll for some of these guys. I mean, look, Domas having his hamstring, feeling it there again after having that moment with Ryan Dunn, like that concerns me coming into this week. He did practice, obviously, but he makes it sound like everything will be fine. The Ryan Dunn moment wasn't a basketball play, but clearly, like that's gonna be a lot of wear on him, and it's a lot of wear on guys like DeRozan, and it's a lot of guys. So even JV, who's a massive human being, who's out there punishing not only the opposition, but I don't know if you checked out my video. Him going up against some of the player development coaches today was a lot of fun to watch. But just, I mean, it's going to be a lot of, they're going to be logging a lot of minutes during this stretch. And fortunately, they're at home to be able to rest, recover, and do all that. And you're not having to catch a flight and switch time zones. But it doesn't make it's going to make this stretch pretty hard. I mean, some of the opposition, as we've talked about over the past couple of weeks, like we've circled this weeks ahead of time, knowing that they're going to have a Memphis team coming in here, a Cleveland Cavaliers team coming in here, the Celtics. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Let's look ahead. So the Kings, they start this long homestand, 7-game homestand tomorrow. And they start out with the Grizzlies. I don't know if John Morant is going to play or not. I haven't looked at the latest injury report. He did not play in their last game, and there's a possibility he will miss this game. He has a shoulder issue. And while I'm talking, I'm going to look up and see what we got for tomorrow. Injury report. The Sacramento Kings are listing Trey Lyles as questionable. And Memphis is putting Santi Aldama as doubtful. Ja Morant is officially out with left hamstring soreness. Scottie Pippen Jr. is questionable with left wrist soreness. So no Ja Morant. That's a big deal for the Sacramento Kings tomorrow. So that's a good thing. But if we keep looking at their schedule, the 7 games is one of the most brutal 7 games homestands I've ever seen. You start with Memphis. On Wednesday, they play against Cleveland Cavaliers. They have a back-to-back at home on Friday against the Bulls. They've got Friday off. They come back on Saturday and play the Milwaukee Bucks. They have Sunday off. They come back and play a back-to-back against the Boston Celtics and Oklahoma City Thunder. That Thunder games, just so people know, is the 5th game in 7 nights. Like, they don't do that very often anymore, and I haven't seen that in a while for the Kings where they have 5 games in 7 nights, but that Oklahoma City game is a scheduled loss. I mean, if they are within 30 of Oklahoma City, I would be surprised, and that's not because they're a bad team or whatever, it's because they're playing for the 7th time for the 5th time in 7 nights against one of the best teams in the league, and then they finish the homestand on Thursday against, Portland. Sean, that's like murderer's row. I mean, you got 2 games that you can win out of that homestand, but that's 2 out of 1, 2 out of 7. Um,
Yeah. So
you
what?
might
Go
be
earn it.
able to
I mean,
sneak you might be able to sneak another one in, right? Maybe 2, I don't know, we'll have to see how it goes, but, the way that they played the last 2 games wouldn't exactly build any confidence, and at 33 and 33, there's a good chance that they could dip under 500, and then there's a good chance they could stay under 500 by looking at the rest of their schedule. Just where are you at with the schedule that's coming up?
I mean, you can't do anything about it. I don't want to hear anyone say how unfair it is because you're still on your home floor. All these other teams have to travel to you. No, it's like not like anybody looked ahead of the time and said, "Here's all the let's schedule all the tougher opponents during this stretch." I mean, if there is an earn it sense, I mean, you've been on the road a lot. You've had success there on the road. I will say when the Cavs come to town, I know they'll be on the second night of back to back. They're going to be playing the Clippers the night before. Um, you try to take advantage of those moments when you can. The Cavs just lost to the Orlando Magic today. So, I mean, like just kind of looking at the schedule, I mean, you do have obviously some, the Bulls aren't great.
Yeah,
The
the Bulls aren't
Trailblazers
great.
aren't great.
Portland's not great, although Portland is fighting, and
They're fighting.
they've won. I think they won again
And
today.
they've given the Kings some fits,
Mhm.
and we know what that has looked like over the stretch of the past 2 years. But yeah, I mean, look, no one's gonna feel sorry for you. Go take care of business. It's home court. You should be able to. If I mean, especially if you're having any aspiration of doing anything in the postseason, like let's not pretend that anybody that they face in the postseason is going to be a cupcake. So,
Oh, no.
just yeah, I mean,
No.
at this point, there's teams hoping to play the Sacramento Kings. Let's be honest. Like when it gets to postseason scenarios, and you need to embrace that. And like certainly what we've seen over the last 4 games at various points has been good. Various points it's been dreck. Um, but you're not that far removed from things looking like. I mean, they look. We keep talking about some of the things that has worked well during this stretch. I mean, there's a winning record under Doug Christie. Guys have played, they've had moments and have played pretty well.
Mhm.
It's really just trying to make it work. And I think during that stretch, you've had 6 games without Domas. You've had injuries to Malik Monk. Right now, you're quasi healthy. I mean, I know you mentioned the Trey Lyles thing. Laravia was coming off of an injury that kept him out of game this past week. You've got every team is going to have these little nicks and knacks as the season goes on and tries to get as close to the postseason as possible. Take advantage of the schedule that's ahead of you and take advantage of those moments. No Ja Morant. That's that should be an advantage coming into tomorrow night. So, got to capitalize. No one's expecting them to go out there and sweep the 7 games. So once you kind of, I think that's one of the things that's been fun to to see, on message boards and social media, where it's like every loss seems to carry a weight to it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and the funny part is sometimes you don't get the credit for the win that you get that might be against a bad team. But if you lose to that bad team, it just rains hellfire on you, So you got to find a happy balance. I mean, they're not going to win every game going out. They're playing like a 500 basketball team, and and they are a 500 basketball team right now. So they got to find ways to go out there and find something. If they can come with a sense of urgency and remain competitive. Someone, Fruity Pebbles for Life, just said the same, asking Justin, I don't know who Justin is, but saying, is this team competitive? We've seen them be competitive. We've seen them be a punch first type of team
They
in
were competitive
in
against the
moments.
Clippers. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, you got to just be able to get up for all these games, and I think for whatever reason, that's the hardest part to find for this team, is to find that sense of urgency and find the, those moments without trying to play hero ball all of a sudden, and keep it from spiraling. So they've done it. They've seen it. Like, there was a stretch, James. How many periods was, I think, two full games where they were under 30 points in periods.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just that should not happen at all.
No, this team is way too talented offensively. They're just not moving the ball. And not only that, but over the last 4 games during the losing streak,
Yeah,
their
they can't
pace
hit the
is
three.
their pace is
They
a
can't hit a three either.
95.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean
terrible.
they just stopped. They just stopped like pushing the tempo. And that's a huge, huge issue for this team. They need to get out and run. And I know that's where you could say, well, they don't have a natural point guard. It's like, okay, just go. Like I don't care. I like that needs to stop being like some sort of excuse that you don't have a point guard. You just need to put your foot down and hit the gas. Um, let's see. There was something else I was just going to bring up. Oh, just the 3 teams that are ahead of the Kings, which are the Clippers, the Timberwolves, and the Warriors at the 6, 7, and 8 spot. The Warriors have won 7 in a row, including one against the Kings. The Timberwolves have won 8 in a row, and the Clippers have won 3 in a row, including one against the Kings. They've opened up separation. Right now, the Kings are 4 games back of the Clippers. They're 3 games back in the loss column. And they lost the season series to the Clippers. So that means that they would have to finish ahead of the Clippers in order to get into the playoffs. And that's going to be a bit of a problem. The other thing is the Mavs are the most decimated team by injury that I've ever seen. There was talk that they might have to actually forfeit a game, like, which I know the NBA
Yeah.
is probably never going to allow that to happen,
No.
but they're going to have to come up with something to help that team out. So the
Did you
Mavs are 33
did
and
you
36.
Sorry, James, did you hear the notion of just dressings, having somebody literally who's injured and cannot play dress just to make it to where, even if that person doesn't play, just sit there in basketball regalia, uniform, just in case, just to be able to hit the requirement. That's
Yeah, because
wild.
I think you have to have 8 players to start a game, right?
Yeah. Jeez, that's
I
crazy.
think you have to have 8 on the bench. And then the other problem that Dallas had, like they had a game last week where they they had a guy pull his hamstring in the late 3rd quarter, and then 2 guys bonk heads and had to go back to the locker room, both get stitches, and Kessler Edwards, and I can't remember who the other one was. So Jason Kidd looks over on the bench. He had nobody. He had 5 players. They were all on the court. Nobody's getting a break. Nobody's getting a breather. Kessler Edwards came back at like the 6-minute mark of the 4th, and they were able to, get him back in the game to help them out. But did you hear what I've just said? Kessler Edwards, Kings legend Kessler Edwards was, first of all, starting at center most likely, and then he was the guy that you were hoping to get back on the bench. And that's, again, not trying to disparage Kessler Edwards, but that's probably not a good thing when you're looking at the guy who's started this season as like your 13th, 14th, or 15th player, and he's got to play. And on top of that, they have a problem with they're hard capped, and their problem is that they're already at the hard cap. So the Kings are hard capped at 178 million, right? Oh, Mark Jones just texted me. He said the other guy, he's listening to the podcast. The other guy
What's up,
was
Mark?
Dwight Powell. What's going on, Mark? So they hard cap themselves, and they're up against the hard cap, where the Kings hard cap themselves by making the DeMar DeRozan trade, but they're not even to 171 million. They're below the luxury tax. Oh, see, Mark did that game. There we go. um,
They,
thanks for
by the
joining
way,
in, Mark.
by the
Go
way,
ahead.
I mean, they're supposed to get PJ Washington back, I believe, this week. That's the plan. I mean, you know how long that will go in helping them just to get literally one body back. It's crazy. And by
Yeah,
the way, Bobby Marks has a fantastic breakdown of this. If you guys can, if you go to his feed, you can find it. I know he put it on YouTube. If you're really interested in how Dallas is trying to, oh, he played this afternoon. Somebody pointed out in the chat. I didn't see the game, so sorry guys. But yeah, just having him back, that's incredible. But I mean, Bobby Marks had this absolute great breakdown of just some of the things that they're facing and having to. It's really just a unique situation, and man, I can't imagine having to go through here. See how different would that be, guys? Just to here you are, a 33-33 basketball team. You've got next seven on your home floor. You're kind of dealing with some injuries, but for the most part, it looks like you're okay. You're having something to play for. And here's Dallas, who also traded a franchise player, got their replacement franchise player, falls apart. The whole thing spiraling. Where would you rather be, Sacramento or Dallas?
I would not rather be Dallas right now.
Yeah.
Dallas is in a really, really dark place. And my point when I started this was to point out that Dallas, the team behind you, has lost 3 in a row, and you're 3
Yeah.
games up on them in the loss column, and you have the season series. The next team below that, man, Phoenix. Like the fact that the Kings lost to Phoenix the other night is just I don't know what to say. I mean, Phoenix is now 4 games in the loss column behind the Kings. They trail the Kings by 3 games overall, but again, they have 37 losses on the season, and we're down to that last stretch where you start looking at losses more than you do at wins because of the unbalanced schedule. But again, Phoenix is 4-6 over their last 10. They got hammered again today. And so the Kings actually picked up a half game on them while they were not playing. I don't know if I'd consider it hammered. They lost to the Lakers, if I'm not mistaken. But still, I mean, what we're looking at is a bunch of teams that are, unfortunately, they're backing into the play-in, the playoffs, whatever you want to call it. It's not the playoffs, the postseason. They're backing into the postseason. And that's going to be, something that I don't think that there is a way that the Kings will not be the number 9 seed. I think they're already locked into the number 9 seed. It's possible that somehow Phoenix catches fire and catches up to the Kings, but I wouldn't there's no way Dallas is going to climb all the way back in there. And that's a problem. Jay Oliphant just put in the chat that Kessler is on a 2-way and only has a couple of games left with the parent club. And the problem, like we discussed this a little bit, the problem with the 2-way is that each of your 3 2-way spots have a 50 game maximum, right? So it doesn't matter if Kessler Edwards goes all the way to 50 and they waive Kessler, they can't actually sign someone else because that spot is now, they can sign somebody else, but they can't play for the parent club. They can only play in the G League because the spot is what has 50 games, not an individual player. So that's a problem. Yeah, so I wouldn't expect Dallas to get any major reinforcements, although Derek Lively and Anthony Davis and who's the other? Who's there? Oh, Daniel Gafford are all. None of the 3 are out for the season. I think maybe the worst case scenario is that Dallas gets all of their big men back in the last week of the season, and Phoenix is still hit the skids, and somehow Dallas is who the Kings play, but all of a sudden they get them with 3 centers that show up right at the last second, and you have to play those guys in the play-in tournament. I also think the Kings finish the season against Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken.
They do. They have Clippers and Suns to end, if I'm not mistaken. I've got it here.
Yeah, it's Denver, Clippers, Suns, and that's after they have the 6-game road trip. And the 6-game road trip is a lot more generous than some of the other trips that they've had, some of the other stretches of games they've had. But there is, after this next 6 games, they do have a stretch where it's Portland, Orlando, who's under 500. The Pacers are above 500. The Wizards on the road, who are the worst team ever. The Charlotte Hornets, who are the second worst team ever. Then you get the Cavs and the Pistons to finish up that stretch, but it
See,
might
it
come down
balances
to,
out.
well, I mean, at the end, you're right. They're a 500 team. They might make it to 500 by the end of the season. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see, Sean, we also have this, I heard this the other day. There are people that are concerned about Keon Ellis's contract status, and I
In what
want to
way?
explain that. So Keon Ellis is like, first of all, as an undrafted player, he spent the first year on a two-way contract. He spent half of his second season on a two-way contract. When the Kings signed him to a 3-year deal, it included the season that he was in, and then this season, and then one more, right? And so Keon Ellis is it's this weird thing that happens with undrafted players and with players that are signed to two-way contracts and then make their way into the league. The Kings have a player option. I mean, have a team option for Keon Ellis next season. If they pick up that option and it's only 2.3 million bucks, then in the summer of 2026, so after next season, Keon Ellis becomes an unrestricted free agent. If the Kings don't pick up that option this summer and they go into this summer, Keon Ellis is now a restricted free agent and they can match any offer for him. So if the Kings are feeling like they're going to have a difficult time retaining Keon Ellis, or if they get into extension conversations and those extension conversations don't go well, there is a possibility that the Kings will not pick up the player option for Keon Ellis this season. So then that way, this summer, he'll be a restricted free agent. He'll be able to shop himself. The Kings will be able to offer him contracts, but then they'll be able to match anybody else's contract if they give him a qualifying offer, which of course they would. So kind of an interesting way in which you have to worry about Keon Ellis a little bit. But the Kings would also, if they do pick up next year's option, they'll have an entire season to try to talk him into an extension. And whether they can get that extension done or not is neither here nor there. We'll have to wait and see. But they might need to hit a different button this summer and pay him earlier than what they probably would want to. And like again, I think Keon is earned whatever contract that he gets. And I don't know if he's a $10 million player or 12 million, or like, you never know. Someone could go crazy and give him way more than that. But I think that there is a good way in which the Kings can probably work out an extension here and get him under contract long term. But I want to make sure that we kind of went over that because it's a little bit of a complex salary cap situation. It's very different than like Keegan Murray, who the Kings can sign to an extension this summer. If they don't sign him to an extension, he plays out, he'd be a restricted free agent at the end of that year. If he decides to play for the qualifying offer, you would have Keegan another season, and then he would be an unrestricted free agent. But again, that would be 2 seasons from now, as opposed to what the Keon Ellis situation would be. And it might be like, it might play out weird this summer and people will get confused by it. But there's a reason why, if they don't pick up his third year on his salary, that's why. It's because they're trying to retain him as a restricted free agent.
As it
Um,
pertains to Keon Ellis, do you have a path in which you would prefer if you were having to handle it? Because, like, honestly, I'm comfortable with either scenario.
yeah, I wouldn't be super comfortable walking into next season with him making 2.3 million bucks and him having the ability to leave at the end of the year. I would not be comfortable with that. I also, like, you always think to yourself, well, how much is Keon Ellis really going to get on the open market, right? And the fact is, I would put him all the way up to like the top of the mid-level exception. I think someone would pay 13, maybe a little bit more for him. Maybe I'm wrong, but we're talking about a guy who's shooting like 44% from three and is an elite defensive player. The problem is, like, you have to have a really good point guard to go alongside him, if you're going to be successful, because he's just not a creator. But still, I don't know, Sean. Like, it's also complicated because what you can't do is opt in and then renegotiate his salary, give him a raise, and then give him an extension off of that. Because the Kings are already over the cap for next season. They're not over the luxury tax, but they're over the cap. So they don't have any natural cap space. So I think it could get a little dicey. And if they think it's going to get a little dicey, then I'm going to opt out of his contract now, and I'm going to lock him up and keep him under contract. That's at least
Yeah.
what I would do. And like,
I don't mean so much can happen between now and then. To me, I hear that. I Keon Ellis as an unrestricted free agent doesn't bother me because go out there and pay him. Like he has opportunity on the team. You can create the scenario. He already knows what it's like here. That especially when you're looking at it conversely with like somebody like Keegan Murray, who I would not want him as a restricted free agent at all. I think restricted free agency is, as I've outlined before, I don't like that for teams and players. It always gets gnarly in those times. But yeah, I mean, if you can swing it, for sure, do it. But I don't think picking up the club option for the next season and him approaching unrestricted free agency puts you at any sort of disadvantage, if that makes sense. You still, hey, if you want him, you go take care of business. But it's the Gabe Vincent thing. Gabe Vincent ended up leaving Miami to go to the Lakers. He got his payday, but they're on the same contracts. These are why these contracts exist, and neither scenario necessarily scares me. Like if I had to pinpoint it, I'd probably certainly lean your way, James, which is extend him and try and avoid all that. But just because he heads towards unrestricted free agency, you've got the leg up on the competition. He knows what it's like to be with whatever coaching staff, whatever teammates around him. All you got to do is show him the money.
yeah, I mean, you've got to show him the money, but I also think that there's going to be a problem here with like, like, is this the right situation for him? He does know
Right.
what's going on here. He does know
Mhm.
that he's blocked from starting where, a lot of
Well,
people
but
think that he
two
should be
years
starting.
2 years from now, that may not be the case.
No,
I
that's
mean, we're
very true.
talking so, who knows what the landscape of the team looks like at that point? Who knows who's coaching the team? Who knows who's in the front office at that point? It could be so many things that are different by that point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just think when you have good players, you should figure out ways to retain those players.
Sure.
And the Kings, have done a decent job of that over the last few years. I would agree. But also the instability of their current situation, the fact that I think Keon, just like everybody else, we talk about Malik would like to start. Keon's been a good soldier and said, "I'll do whatever it takes," right? And sometimes that means that you're missing out on a possibility of, especially with Keon, like could he, if he was starting and playing 34, 35 minutes a night, could he be considered for an all defensive team? And the answer is probably yes, especially with his ability to shoot the three and all the other things, the intangibles that he brings. And those are things that players want. So I would kind of like I think if he were to hit restricted free agency right now, I do believe he would get probably close to mid-level exception money, and probably right around like the Herb Jones contract.
What are you talking about?
That's
Unrestricted, right?
no, if he hits restricted free agency.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, some team, like, any team
I'd keep
can.
him out of that. I mean, I'd keep him out of that. It's either you pick up the option and he goes into unrestricted free agency for
Yeah.
Keon Ellis, but you cannot have him become a restricted free agent. You can't let the market dictate who he is, and you can't let your team look at he can't feel that there's not love from the team.
Yeah, but an unrestricted free agent, can just walk and go wherever he
Right, and
wants.
that's the risk
Yeah.
you take. Like to me, but again, you can still say, "Hey, these are the parameters are in place," but you still throw all the money at him, and if he leaves, he leaves. But you can't in a restricted free agency, you can't say, "Go fall in love with another girl, and then I'll determine whether I want to keep you."
Yeah.
That is toxic.
No,
I
no,
know
I
toxic
agree.
when I see it.
I'm really hoping they figure out what exactly happens here with him. And either way, like this summer, one of the reasons why you would decline his contract and make him a restricted free agent is just so you can keep negotiating and figure out what if there is a value out there, that evaluation that's put on him. We saw how this played out like Monty's first year when it came to Bogdanovich, and he decided not to match Bogey's contract. And I don't know that Keon's going to get that type of money, but there's all it takes is one team to pay, and guys like, I don't know, Contavious Caldwell Pope got paid, guys like Bruce Brown got paid, guy going all the way back to Kent Bazemore got a ridiculous amount of money, And I bring up those types of players because they're all like 3-and-D, lanky, you know. And when you're young, like Keon is, 25 years old right now. You'd like to keep Keon forever, and especially since you're the one who discovered him and helped develop him and helped him create the type of player that he is in the NBA. All right, Sean, let's get to um, the business of basketball. And of course, you're not. Brendan's not here today to do sound effects, which
He
for
rarely
me,
is.
he-
It's like every third or fourth time.
yeah, yeah. So, I don't know, Sean. Like we're hitting like the dog days, and I asked you like at the beginning of the pod, like, are you concerned? And I certainly like just looking at not just their play over the last 4 games, and you can say realistically over the last 3 games. I thought the first game in that set they were very good against the Clippers and just got a bad bounce and lost. But you look at the schedule, you look at who they are today, like where is your level of concern and where, if you were predicting, where do you think this team will end up by the end of the season?
Um, yeah, I guess it's a fair question now because, about a month ago, I was like, I couldn't tell you what I expect from this team. I actually expect them to stay right about where they're at. I wouldn't bet on them falling out of the play-in tournament. I don't think they're going to catch 6 at this point. And I think this is just who they are. They're going to go with these ebbs and flows with, effort, competitive spirit, ready for the games. I don't think there's any secret recipe for somebody to give them the win one for a Gipper speech and be able to just find magic in a bottle and go on some incredible run. So if you can try and keep yourself in the upper echelon of the play-in tournament, that 7 and 8 spot. I mean, that's going to be the most ideal because I feel like you're doomed if you are in the 9 or 10. So I think that's what you're shooting for now. Certainly, if they can catch a roll, that'd be great. But I just don't think that will happen. But I do think when this team is right, they have a level of competition about them, and I felt good about what that looks like, especially when they've been able to show a give a damn on the defensive end. It wasn't that long. I mean, we were a week ago, where all of a sudden that looked like it had maybe turned a corner, and then you sink back into old habits again, and it seems like one game, a bad result or a dramatic loss, um, tends to maybe unravel them a bit. But I don't know. I think I would be leaning towards. I think this team's going to stay in the play-in tournament, and I think with any hope, their goal is to try and stay 7-8 if they can, and move up that way. But yeah, that's kind of where I think they'll finish, is just obviously play-in tournament. I don't know where.
Okay, cool. And so people understand the 9-10 is much different than the 7-8, right?
Yeah.
If
Yep.
you win the 7-8 game, it doesn't matter you're the 8 or the 7. If you win the 7-8 game, you become the 7 seed in the in the playoffs, and you avoid playing the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. If you're whoever loses that game plays the winner of the 9-10 game. So it's conceivable that if you're the 10 seed, you'd have to go on the road to play the 9. If you somehow win that, you have to go on the road again to play the 8 or the 7-8, the loser of the 7-8 game. And then on top of that, if you did somehow win, you would then go directly on the road and play the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. So that 9-10 is really, really a rough spot. I don't think the Kings can fall out of the 9-10 because I don't think that either Phoenix or Dallas has the juice to catch them. And I certainly don't think both of them have the juice, and that's what it would take. It would take both of them winning a bunch of games and you not winning hardly any for both of those teams to move ahead of you. So I think the Kings are pretty close to locked into the 9. They could hope that, maybe Minnesota or the Clippers fall apart again. Again, they'd have to finish above the Clippers because of the tiebreaker. And I think Do they have the tiebreaker against Minnesota? I don't know why I want to say.
It'd be funny to see, by the way, could Portland catch Dallas as they fall? You
Yeah.
know, that would be interesting. 4-game separation right now, I believe, currently. So, yeah,
Oh,
that would be interesting.
the Kings split with Minnesota. So, and then it comes down to a bunch of other things. I think there
Minnesota, who,
is,
by the way, have won 7 straight.
yeah, that's the problem. Everybody seems to be playing, the teams that are above you seem to be playing well. And the teams that are with you and below you and yourself, they aren't so much playing well. The Clippers have, okay, so first of all, Phoenix has the most difficult schedule remaining in the league. They have a 599 strength of schedule against. So almost a 600 opponent win percentage against. The Clippers are now number 2 with a 565, which is again brutal. Utah is number 4, and then the Kings are no, Utah's number 3. The Kings are number 4, right? But so we know the Kings and the Suns both play like a ridiculous schedule down the stretch. It's going to be very difficult for either one of them to make up a bunch of ground. The problem is that Minnesota has the 28th most difficult schedule. They have a 440 win percentage against. So I don't think there's a way for you to catch them. It really might come down to whether you can catch the Clippers. And Golden State's right in the middle. They have a 502 win percentage against. They have a pretty relatively simple schedule. Phoenix only has 3 games left against like easy win opponents, and that's Toronto, Chicago, and the Spurs. The Kings still have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. They still have 6 games against teams that are below 500 or like are considered winnable or easier opponents in the Wizards, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Blazers, the Suns, and the Magic. So maybe the Kings have a shot here to pick up some games on those teams ahead of them, but I do think it's pretty clear that they're either going to be the 8 or they're going to be the 9. I don't think they'll catch both. I don't think they'll be able to move up to 7. That's going to be really difficult. And the way they're playing, like Secure into Bagley might be right here. They aren't catching anybody. So anyway, yeah, the Clippers have 5 more wins than the Kings, but again, at this time of year, always look at the loss column. And I'm not sure that I still have that pulled up, but the loss column.
Well,
Um,
Clippers have lost 30, Kings have lost 33,
so
Timberwolves have
3
lost
games.
29. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 games in the loss column. Yeah, and Minnesota, you're right. Minnesota is the 7 seed. They have 40 wins. It's going to be very difficult to catch any of those guys. Um, let's get to
What's
some
going to be
questions.
interesting to see is if the Timberwolves catch the Clippers. I mean, excuse me, Timberwolves catch the Warriors, who have been obviously playing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
That Jimmy Butler trade looking great for them at the moment. And yeah, I think there's a half game separation between Minnesota and Golden State right now.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to questions. Rob H, we have no idea why the home record is so poor again. Again, it's something that Doug Christie has yelled about. It's something that Luke Walton yelled about. It's something Alvin Gentry literally could not stop screaming about.
Alvin was the best when it came to that, but it's just been since the construction of Golden One Center. It's not like it's a bad atmosphere. Teams come in here and they play well.
It seems like the shot lines, the shooting, like was the sight lines. There we go. The sight lines are spectacular, and everybody comes in ready to shoot. They also come in knowing that they're playing one of the worst 3-point defensive teams in the world, and so that's going to be a problem. Let's
Some dude
see,
already filled out his bracket already. That's crazy.
Ramsey, what are you doing? Like
That's wild.
that's wild. That's crazy. Um, let's see. I don't know if we're gonna have one at 11 at excuse me at ESPN 1320.
You don't need one. I mean, there's a great big just for fun tournament that you can
that
join.
we've played in forever, right?
Yes, yeah, just that's all you need.
Yeah. NBA guru Zach, like, look, dude, this is kind of like leading the witness. Do I agree with everything for Worth? Sabonis 2 first. I don't know if Sabonis for 2 first. I don't know that the Kings want to trade Sabonis. And even if you were to the point where you had to trade Sabonis, he makes $40 million. So 2 firsts and what else? because now we're talking about like a whole boatload of players. Yeah, you got DeMar DeRozan for 2 to 3 second round picks. I don't know. Keegan Murray, a first and a second. LaVine, nothing. You think they need to reset 100%. I got to be honest, NBA guru Zach, it doesn't matter what you believe about them needing to reset 100%. They're not going to. So
Who calls him? He's the NBA guru. That's what I say. He should be telling us.
He calls
Oh, it's self.
himself
That's all right.
the NBA guru. Yeah. So but still fun. Good for you.
Someone asked about my shirt earlier. I didn't answer it.
What do you have on?
You don't know who that is, do you?
It's
Billie Eilish.
Oh, okay. That was what was popping in my head, but I wasn't sure. Let's see. Spencer says the only team he sees trading for Domas is the Nets. Yeah, I totally disagree with that. Yeah, I think that there will be other teams. If the Kings, see, Peyton, like if the Kings had Julian Champagny, you wouldn't be in this mess. If the Kings got, well, I think that's a jab because we said, hey, why didn't you get anything out of the Spurs, even like Julian Champagny?
Champagny.
So either way, I think you'd be a better team with Champagny than you are today, just in all honesty. He would at least give you the scorer off the bench that you don't currently have. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, Justin, you got 2 Champagnes, Justin and Julian. Didn't get either. But that's because, again, San Antonio looked you in the eye and said, no, they don't have to.
The baby daddy, Sean and Ham, you both alluded to a dark story possibly involving the Kings. Can you drop some more breadcrumbs? I think we're going to let the breadcrumbs wait on that.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, you'll be like, oh.
And I didn't say dark, by the way. I said
I may have said dark.
If you think that there's if you think this is chaotic and crazy, buckle up. Yeah, you'll see.
Buckle up. Woo!
There's more stuff that's going to come, and Kings fans have been through stuff before, so yeah, it's some unique stuff might come out, but this is
yeah. This is a great question. Why does God hate Sacramento? Daniel, I don't know. Certainly it's basketball team. I think,
or she, or
yeah.
they. I don't know. God is a lot of things. I don't know.
You know why? Because God helps those who help themselves, and the Kings don't help
if that
themselves
was true,
at all.
Here's the thing. But if that was true, the Kings wouldn't be in Sacramento, right?
No, that's true.
There you go. Yeah. Glass half full.
There you go. Way to bring to put a smile on our face, Sean.
Should.
Let's see. NBA Guru Zach. Yeah, man. We're pretty 100% sure that their Kings aren't going to go that route because the problem is they have 2 $40+ million players, one of which I don't think you can trade at all. And like there might be a way to trade him, but you also have a $25 million player that doesn't have a huge market. And I think you're probably going to see this Kings group try to figure their way out of the hole without doing a complete rebuild. And it doesn't matter what any of us think.
Let's be honest, a complete rebuild. You buying tickets for that?
Yeah. Are you buying tickets, and are you buying tickets at the current prices? Because they keep bumping up the prices, and that's not good. This is a good question here from George Manios. Well, I'm butchering your last name. My bad. Have you guys heard anything from the org if Isaac Jones will be converted? Bright spot recently. I think Isaac Jones is at like 47, 48, 49 games. So if they're going to convert him, it's going to be in the next week.
You still have a roster spot open as well, right?
They have 2. They only have 13 players on the roster.
2?
Right now. Yeah, because Scal's 10-day ran out.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, they don't have extra spots. And they do have extra spots on the roster. But again, they're super close to the luxury tax. So it's possible they're waiting until the salary is just low. And that's probably why they haven't signed him yet. Although, again, maybe they want to sign him, maybe they don't. We never have an idea if they're actually going to, sign him until it gets closer to when they actually do it. What are our thoughts on Devin Carter from Skierna Bagley? Sean, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, he's had some good positive moments. I mean, to get him back in part of the rotation has been good. You know, it's his rookie season has obviously been stunted, so anything he can get is going to be good. There was a moment today. I shared a video of all those guys getting beat up by Jonas Valanciunas, and Devin Carter poked away steel on him, and that was his walk off moment from the practice court. But I don't know. I mean, I think right now there's a lot of work to be done for him, but keeping his confidence high is of the utmost importance. And if he can get in there and fill a void for a team at various points of a game, where I don't know if it's a 7-minute stretch, but we've seen it in about 3 minutes at points. Try and build off of that. That's all he needs is moments to build off of, and there's a lot to like. I mean, you see the way he rebounds, you see the way um, he's tenacious, and so it's a little bit of you can see the talent, you can see things that you like about Devin Carter, but it's gonna probably take some time. So
Yeah, I'm kind of I don't know how to put this.
like
Like
that high arcing shot.
unimpressed with just about everything that I've seen, and like there's gonna come a point where he has a lot of work to do as a player. I don't want to be horribly, too harsh on the kid because he missed, not just 6 months of like super crucial development, but he really hadn't played in like 8 or 9 months by the time he got to Sacramento. And I think the Kings put him in a situation that was untenable more than himself. Again, trying to fight back from a shoulder injury like that, not having any time to work with the professional training staff and all that stuff outside of rehab really hurt his development. And as of right now, like I feel like when you send a kid to the G League, he has to have a very clear message about what it is that you want from him. And every time I see Devin Carter come back from the G League, I feel like he thinks he's going to score 30 in a game at the pro level. And
Okay,
so,
why do you say that?
like the other day, he ran in, grabbed a rebound, and was like, "Oh, great, you grabbed a rebound." He took 3 steps back and hoisted a three with 12 seconds still on the shot clock. It was like, wow. Now he hit the three, but still, it's just the like if you go right back up with it and score on a putback like that, that's one thing. But to like take the steps to go back out behind the 3-point line and hoist, I just thought it just shows you in my mind that like he's very much looking to get numbers. And that's not, an NBA player, especially one that's missed half the season, they need to play themselves in by playing good defense, by rebounding, by doing the dirty work. Um, and
I
maybe
mean, he's
maybe that's what
he's
he thinks.
he's like you just said, he's been out for a long time. Like he's this many in the league. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is. I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that's it. I don't know. It just seems like an odd thing to pick apart on a guy. I mean, what are you expecting from him? He's a rookie. There's a
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
game, feel for the NBA game that he still has to get a hold of and
I
learn.
think that's
So
more of like my point. He forces everything. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, if you're forcing everything, it's fine. But to me, it does feel like he does force a ton. And like, look, I think he's outperformed Fultz over the last week or so. So like, I don't have any problems with him playing minutes. But the fact is, you can see that Doug Christie's playing him like 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes. Like he needs to go out there and actually find a way to earn minutes. And the way to earn minutes at the pro level, I'll just repeat it, is to play defense, is to rebound, is to do all the dirty work, and not worry about all the other things. So, let's. Well, okay. I think we're just about done with questions.
I've got
Um.
one. It's
Uh
for you,
oh.
James.
Oh no.
How do you feel? Do you get a little sentimental because you built the downtown plaza? The Macy's is closing. Is that bring the kind of the nostalgia back for you?
Huh. That's a good question. I was actually
With
talking
your
to my
own,
dad.
with your bare hands, you built that plaza.
Yeah, so I talked to my dad about this the other day because he had actually bumped into someone that we had worked on the downtown plaza together with. So I worked with on the downtown plaza with my dad, um, and like it was a miserable experience. I don't know like if you've ever worked any construction jobs, but
Absolutely not. No,
a
no, no.
job of that magnitude. There was and it's funny because I think the area is still there. It's one of the few areas that are still left. Right outside of Macy's, there's an overhang, right? And I got stuck, me and two other dudes. They had built scaffolding all the way up to like 5 feet from the ceiling. So when the plasters came in, I don't know how the plasters, they must have had a very small plasterer who was spraying like stucco up on the ceiling. Well, all of the extra like falls on the wood planks. And me and two other dudes had to go up there and shovel and break all of the plaster up that was on these wood planks and shovel it down into like a bin. And it was like probably 2 or 3 days of not being able to see at all because it's just dust, wearing a mask, having a hard hat on, and the ceiling was 5 foot tall. So I was hunched over the entire time, and it was absolutely miserable. And so I'm okay with change happening because I didn't love that job as it was, and it was hard work, but also I learned a valuable lesson during the downtown plaza. It was that everything weighed more than I did,
Hmm.
and if I was gonna do that for a living, that my body wouldn't hold up very long, and my body hasn't held up not doing that job, with the back and stuff, but that job was absolutely brutal on the body. So, especially shoveling all that stuff. So I'm not sad to see Macy's go, although I do like to go hit Macy's during the Christmas time and, uh, like between shoot arounds and games, go to Macy's and shop for Christmas presents. So
I'm so glad.
I'm kind of bummed that it's going to be gone. But what they're putting in a new like high rise hotel right there,
Yeah, it's
right?
the rumor. I well, I was saying I wasn't saying I was glad that Macy's is gone. I'm just so glad that I asked because I know you've got such a connection to downtown Plaza. So
I have a
uh,
weird connection because
I knew there
I
was going
worked
to be
at
a story.
Copeland's. I worked at
Yeah.
Copeland's there too, and the Copeland's is now 24-hour. But like I worked in that building for a couple of years. Well, no, a
So
year.
so before Golden One Center, then, and before the Kings moving their operations over there, I'd say the best downtown Plaza moment would have been the welcoming of Corliss Williamson and Tyus Edney, and they had that big. Um,
Yeah.
I was there for that. I
Yeah,
had
that was
the
in D
big.
court. That was yeah.
What is
Down
D court?
well, that's below where the food court was. It was by
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
brewery and everything else. I think they did back-to-back years there. They did the Brian Grant, Michael Smith, and I think what Evers Burns draft party there the year before
Mm,
or 2 years before that as well.
that one
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't there for.
Lots of good memories there. But again, like seeing a Macy's go, it's kind of sad because the reason why the Macy's is going out is the same reason the Starbucks is going out. It's just that the theft and the risk to employees has gone up and up and up in downtown Sacramento, and Macy's, pulled out of there when and sold the building because they got tired of it. You know, I think I tell I like went to go get in my car the other day and there was like a brand new pair of pants sitting on my windshield. I'm like, what in the world? I look at
Someone
them.
wanted you to have them.
They still have a tag on them. They still have the tags on them, like the price tag and everything. I walked them back up to Macy's and handed them to someone. I'm like, hey, I don't know. I'm assuming someone stole these and tried to get rid of them in the parking lot because someone was chasing them or something. But here you go. I do have
Hmm.
a lot of crazy Copeland's getting in crazy fight stories from that Copeland's downtown because the bus depot was right down the escalator and right down the street. And that's where the Sac County jail would drop everybody. And a lot of people had nowhere to go. So they wanted to go back to jail. And so they would go try to get caught stealing. And so we had some crazy fights and all kinds of wild stuff.
Did you have to throw down?
Yeah, I threw down a couple of times. Yeah, it was a little wild.
Wow. You don't
Yeah.
like Ham when he's angry.
I body slammed a kid one time. It was crazy. He took a big swing and
That's how your
yeah.
back got screwed up.
Oh, my back's been screwed up for years, but it didn't help. Yeah, I got like 30 minutes after and the adrenaline stopped and I was like, "Ah, I'm done. Somebody call the wife. I'm going to need a ride home because I can't drive." So, sweet. All right, let's get to final thoughts. What do you got for final thoughts?
You go first. Let me think about something real quick. I'll let you look out your window and find
Well,
find
it's
a
dark
fun.
now. I can't even see. Well, I can still see the lake a little bit. Final thoughts. This is going to be bumpy and weird, and fans are super emotional. I get it, and I'm not going to be someone who tells you how to fan at all. Like if you want to boo, you boo. If you want to cheer, you cheer. All that stuff. But I do know that like the anxiety I've felt from the fan base over the last like couple of weeks is pretty crazy, and like people out there like take care of yourselves. Like don't live and die so much with every single win and loss. And if your team makes it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. And I think this we're in for a wild ride over the next like 6 to 8 weeks. And I expect lots of changes. And like this is going to be a weird stretch for Kings fans. But at the end of the day, just keep in mind it's a game, and everybody should be keeping a level head and thinking of it that way.
No,
No.
no, That's not existing. You've seen social media. You see how people respond. There's some anger out there. I get it. It's it's fine. I do tend to look more on your side of things, though, James. That's how I approach a lot of this stuff. I mean, this is not a complete product, and I don't think anybody should have had expectation that would be a complete product after making some of the decisions that they've made mid-season. So, just trying to make the best of it. Trying to remain competitive, get to the off season, try to fix a lot of this. What's kind of plaguing this team. So Gary, I will not wear a cowboy hat on the next spot. Is my mic messed up? Is somebody saying my mic is messed up? I don't have laryngitis.
No,
It might have been the
your
same
mic
guy.
sounds perfectly fine, at least
Nice.
from what I
Okay.
hear. Um,
Um,
I
but
don't
no,
think
I mean,
neither one of us actually own a cowboy hat. I don't. Well, I know I don't.
I absolutely do not.
I don't think Hurley makes a cowboy hat. People.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but neither does Nike. Neither does Nike. So or Jordan. No, I don't have a cowboy hat. I do have. It's sitting right here. This is kind of interesting. Though. This is probably the closest Western thing I have in here. This is the. I don't know why I have this. They gave it away when you could see the Hateful Eight on in the theater, like on the
Oh,
film screening that they did. So uh, that's a presented in glorious 70 millimeter film. If you didn't get to see it, but they also have the road show in all the cities, like a concert tour of all the cities they did it in. So I
okay.
happen to have that. That was kind of westerny. So that, and I have a lot of weird stuff in here. How about this? The Jack Daniels house in Las Vegas, and it's signed by some. I don't know why I have this. It's signed by the Barrel Man who does a lot of Jack Daniels. I was going to give that to you actually because I don't drink Jack Daniels. But
I don't drink
anyway,
Jack Daniels,
those are
but
two westerny kind of things that
drink
are in this room.
whiskey. But yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
No cowboy boots either. That's definitely not happening.
Nope, no
I'd go to a
cowboy
country. I'd go
boots.
to a country station or station. I'd go to a country concert. I've been to country concerts before. Those are fun. I had a coworker of mine had a birthday thing at Stonies. If you guys have been there, they do line dancing out
Hmm.
there. Not that this guy is going to do line dancing, but I can definitely hang at the bar and get to know some of the co-eds that are out there. So yeah, that's more of my speed.
There he is, Sean, hanging out
Yeah,
with the co-eds. All right. I think that's gonna do it. Big shout out to everybody who's joined us in the chat today. Really enjoyed the added piece that you guys bring. It's always great to get questions, and so we're not just sitting here talking by ourselves. Also, Brendan will be back next week. Brendan had again,
yeah.
it looked he rear-ended somebody. He did some damage to the girlfriend's car. He's got stuff to take care of. And so no Brendan
Look
today.
out for Nunez when he's on the roadways. You know.
That's right. He's a little wild, a little wild. Outside of that, check out Underdog. Use the promo code KingsBeat, all one word. Jump in, have some fun doing the Underdog stuff with us. Maybe next week I'll bring out lineups and we'll have Sean tell me if he would go more or less on all of our Underdog picks. Oh, there we go. That's an idea.
I would try it. Yeah, because I don't have to actually totally.
Play.
Yeah, I'll try that. See how it works. I'm fine with that. Right.
Yep. And outside of that, you'll see me tomorrow on the Insiders. You'll see Sean all the time on Fox 40 and everything he does there. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff, and jump on board with the Kings Beat. So let's see, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you very soon.